Want to know what's new in the world of UK privacy law? Well, today's your lucky day. Welcome to another episode of A Little Privacy, Please. I'm Jason Kravitz, and with me, as always, is my colleague and friend, Jenny Holmes. Together, we lead Nixon Peabody's cybersecurity and privacy team. Our guest today is Jaswinder Kaur. Jazz is a senior manager and senior legal officer at Autodesk in the UK. Before joining Autodesk, Jazz was the group general counsel of a software and managed solutions company, also in the UK. Privacy is a big piece of what Jazz does for her internal clients at Autodesk. She's here today to share some of those insights with us from her perspective as an in-house attorney on some privacy issues that are getting some attention in the UK. Welcome to the show, Jazz. I want to ask you about CCTV cameras, Jazz. For those of us who watch British crime dramas, and I'm definitely one of them, it seems like London and the UK generally is just filled with CCTV cameras. Like they're on every street corner, they're ubiquitous. Are there privacy laws specifically that govern the use of CCTV cameras on private property? For example, if they're capturing images of people walking by on the street?
So the use of recording equipment such as CCTV or smart doorbells to capture video or sound recordings outside the user's property boundaries, not a breach per se of UK data protection law. People should try to point their CCTV cameras away from their neighbours' homes and gardens, shared spaces or public streets, so as to not capture images of things that aren't really associated with the property. But this is not always possible.
So are there specific rules that apply to fixed cameras then, Jazz?
Well, actually, there are rules that apply to fixed cameras. One, tell people that they are using recording equipment. Two, in most circumstances, provide some of the recording if asked by a person whose images have been captured. Three, regularly or automatically delete footage. And four, in most circumstances, delete recordings of people if they ask. And five, stop recording a person if they object to being recorded, but only if it is possible to do so. For example, if they can point the camera in a different direction, but still use it for the same purposes, e.g. keeping their property safe. But these rules are very hard to enforce. The police aren't breaking down doors in London to confirm that someone with a security camera has deleted footage that someone objected to. If you have an issue with a neighbour's camera recording you or your family, you're certainly welcome to speak to that person.
Jazz, facial recognition is a really hot topic right now in the US. Is it permitted in the UK, or what's the law status on that?
So Jenny, it's also quite controversial in the UK. So very recently, the Information Commissioner's Office ruled that the software called FaceWatch, which some retail stores use for some real-time scanning as people enter a store, and it will flag subjects of interest, complies with the UK Surveillance Camera Code of Practice and the UK GDPR. I believe FaceWatch was the first facial recognition product to be approved by the ICO.
So Jazz, switching gears a little bit here, I recently read there's momentum among members of Parliament for a new data law that would dramatically reduce pointless paperwork and reduce cookie pop-ups. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The Data Protection and Digital Information Bill. It was first introduced in 2022, but it's been revised quite a bit to make it easier to comply and less cumbersome for businesses. The new bill would, among other things, reduce the amount of paperwork organizations need to complete to demonstrate compliance with the data and privacy obligations, and increase public and business confidence in AI technology by clarifying the circumstances when robust safeguards apply to automated decision-making. It would also establish a framework for the use of trusted and secure digital verification services, which allow people to prove their identity digitally if they choose to do so. This will allow customers to create certified digital identities that make it easier and quicker for people to prove things about themselves. And finally, it would ensure businesses can continue to use their existing international data transfer mechanisms to share personal data overseas if they are already compliant with current UK data laws.
Thanks, Jazz. That's actually really informative. The discussion we had earlier about CCTV in London, I can't help but think about British crime dramas whenever I hear CCTV. Do you have a particular favorite?
I prefer watching Monk, which is actually one of the US old style sort of detectives.
And Jazz, so let me ask you one last question. I don't know if Jenny has any other questions, but
Go for
is
it.
there a particular privacy issue that you've confronted recently that you found to be particularly thorny, or one that kind of woke you up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat?
I think the way the UK is going generally, especially after sort of Brexit, and a lot of now creating our own sort of privacy legislation, and with AI coming in, there's a lot for us to consider. I mean, globally from an AI perspective, but actually the UK as well, because it now sits outside of the European Union. So that for me is definitely a key area to watch, because there'll be a lot coming out of that. And we need to maintain adequacy with the EU and globally as well, because there will be a lot of data transfers, and for businesses to survive, we need to make it easier for them to do business. So for me, it doesn't necessarily keep me up at night, but it's definitely one that I keep an eye on, because it's the way that we'll be moving forward.
Well, thank you, Jazz. That's another episode of A Little Privacy, Please. We'll see you next time. I have, dreams of going into one of the old red telephone booths and coming out as Superwoman.